You're with Santos Bonacci, and this is just a special edition. I've invited some great guests today. I have Matt Presti and Robert O'Tay, and they will be joining me very, very shortly. A couple of weeks back, we did have a show with Matt and Robert, and it was great. It was well received, and folks called me up asking to have them again. So this is going to be great. I'll be speaking directly with Matt and Robert together. So, and I've asked for this special edition because I really am keen to get as much Russellian science and natural science out in the airwaves as possible. I'm just doing my part to be able to reach as many people with this beautiful science. And I really feel in my heart of hearts that Matt and Robert are the ones who are teaching Russellian natural science probably the best, including Jason Verbelli, which I will have eventually on one of my shows. But these guys have been doing wonderful work. They have wonderful websites and resources and information where you can now really study natural science and get away from these stupid theories that just keep changing by the day, and they keep just inventing new stuff to entertain us with, really, in the nuclear atom world of consensus buffoons. And people, of course, are trained to look up to these monkeys, you know, the scientists and all of these idiots. And so people, as soon as they open their mouths and vomit out their crap, you know, they've got hordes of blind fools that open their ears to listen to these morons. So that's why, as you know, folks, I'm a fiction buster, and I love busting fictions. And I've had a go at the fictional science teachings, the theories, and I've had a go in my presentations to show how erroneous they are. But it's always a pleasure to speak with people like Matt and Robert. Now, Matt, I believe we have you online. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for joining me at such short notice, too. I only found out yesterday that I had this extra show, and my intention for this month was to rest and relax and you know, spend time with my wife, and and because but the opportunity to talk to you guys. Hello, you there? Can you hear me, Matt? Oh,
There's
sorry.
a little bit of interference there. I lost you, but
yeah, I have to apologise right now. I do have some troubles with my brand new mic, which I bought 2 weeks ago, and my brand new headphones. So, folks, please forgive me if I'm cutting in and out. So, Matt, thanks once again, and here we are doing another show. So this time, basically, it's just you guys and me.
sounds great. It's just, you know, it's almost technology, so a bigger call is always a more difficult task and challenge. So,
yeah, and look, I'm a bit selfish here having you guys back because I learned so much from listening to you. So, you know, this is really a treat for me to have you guys. It's just a treat for me, and of course, I know how much the listeners appreciate what you guys have got to share, because I was bombarded by people saying, have Matt and Robert on again. And I want to have more natural science Russellian Science on audio before the end of this year is out. So very, very selfish on my part, but it's going to be to the advantage of many, many listeners. Yeah, well, where we left off last time was we were talking about debunking some of the... Well, we did debunk some of the atomic theories, the nuclear atom, etc. But that's an interesting subject, the nuclear atom. Why do you think it is that we have so many followers of this theory? It's just a theory. Are people too lazy to want to, investigate for themselves, or are they just happy to let the scientific world preach to them whatever rubbish theories they come up with?
Well, I guess I could best say I think it's in line with mankind's natural progression. Honestly, I don't think it was... In the very beginning, education was very hard to get across to people as far as why it's good to read, why it's good to write, and it's taken literally thousands of years for even a form of education to become something that people felt was important. I mean, always in the tribal setting, the shaman would share the wisdom with the tribe, and I think that's the roots of education. But as they say, the road to hell is always paved with good intentions, but as Terence McKenna said, the road to hell is never paved with clarity. So in that children come up in an education system that has obviously been hijacked in the past 100 years, so it is that it's natural that if lies are taught, then lies will be what's believed. And it's not necessarily the fault of the people in the colleges and the schools. I mean, we've all been duped, and we all have to come to this awakening process if we're going to really see what it is we're trying to free ourselves from. And so I think it's a good place to start with a accurate perception that, what we're dealing with in terms of other people's awareness is really something to empathize with, because we've all come from that place and we know how hard it can be to take a look at things that just seem completely out of the box, especially if the box is all you know. So,
yeah, look, the system's been hijacked by materialists, wouldn't you say? People who are purely material, who really believe that everything results from the material organic soup that has evolved over millions of years. And all of these other things like consciousness and the brain and the mind and emotions and all of these are a byproduct and a natural side effect of the material organism evolving.
Yeah, indeed. And I think part of the mistake on scientists' part for why they reject the notion of a causal universe by mind force is because the senses are literally a mirror. They wouldn't work if vibration, and as the 18 dimensions that Walter talked about, weren't dimensions where you exist in another reality. These were dimensions of physicality, and these 18 dimensions, some of which include time, temperature, width, breadth, height, all these things that are verifiable through sense when you use your senses correctly. And basically what senses are mirrors of these vibrations. They wouldn't work if these vibrations weren't there. So these frequencies, vibrations of matter, which is light, all matter is simply different pressure conditions of this one substance. So what science has effectively done is locked itself into a position of sensing from these senses alone, which is equivalent to trying to drive a car looking in your rearview mirror to go forward. I mean, literally, the mere effect of reality is vibration. And so from stillness, this vibration unfolds into a seeming motion picture universe of illusion, but refolds into stillness. And that's really the difference between sensing and knowing where sensing is living in a mirror image and believing the image to be real, as knowing is to live in the real universe and to know that the image of motion and vibration is the mirage or the illusion. So one place denotes living from the external looking inward, which is toward the soul, and the other involves from the inward looking outward and believing the outward is real, which is objectivity for the most part.
Yeah.
It's where also notions of atheism and lack of creator and as being causal. So.
Yeah, very, very sad. Very, very sad for the ones who fall into that pitfall of illusion. Very, very sad. Now, I really enjoy the illustration that you brought to my attention of how Walter Russell explained his illumination. He explained that he had to go past the two lights, or the two pillars, blue and red, of duality, and then reach the white pillar of white light. I really get a lot out of that, Matt. It's opened up many, many things to me. So the dualistic world, and I think if I'm correct, you mentioned that the red is the left brain and the blue is the right brain. So, but the stillness, the still white light of knowing and being is in the center of these two lights, these two colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you expand on this? Because this is beautiful. It's rich.
Sure. The red and blue is dominantly the two sides of creation, the male being red, the female being blue. And basically it's the hemispheres of all bodies. Cells have hemispheres, north and south. Planets have hemispheres. People have hemispheres. And we also have equator lines. And the equator is, in the center of the equator is one of the plane cubes, and all cube planes, the side static six faces, which we are cubical. We have a front, a back, a left, a right, and a top and a bottom. So literally, for the most part, many creations of man mimic the cube. And basically, the stillness being the cube side or the center is a cathode plane of evacuation, of undividedness. And in those inert rings of mind, gas rings of inert gases, the central shaft of that is the gravity shaft of man. And you could say it runs straight down the center of the body. The heart is the twin opposing vortice, where as Robert likes to say, the seat of the soul, as was distilled from the Atomic Suicide book. They changed their language from being the pineal as the seat of the soul to the heart being the seat of the soul. And I tend to agree with that, but I also think that the pineal is the marriage of the heart and mind. Because in the visionary experience, we tend to see our visions, and may I qualify our visions as not being hallucinogenic when I've done my mind expansion and mind opening trips, if you will. I never saw anything that I would consider a hallucination. What I saw were geometrical patterns, intense light, the motions of the waves through all matter and substance. So it wasn't, this label of hallucinogens and all that is just invalid to me in particular. But learning of the white light, I think that's the realization of the left and right, the two hemispheres that all bodies exhibit, is the left and right, or the red and blue. So it's natural to see life as duality. But centering all motion, if you can marry those two things together, the alchemists called it heart and mind, male, female, sun, moon. If you can marry those opposites and silence and still that seesaw of motion, then you have penetrated the pillars. And there's multiple ways to penetrate it, but the best one, if you can learn to do it without any substances, without any external modalities, then you've really mastered the art of it. And not many people can sit still and be quiet for a very long period of time. And unfortunately, that kind of, in a way, it's good, and I can understand why, because it bars out those who are the profane, who shouldn't be allowed to access that kind of mind light knowing, because only the pure can approach it. And it's no joke, as Walter said, you can't wisecrack your way into illumination. It only happens to those who truly desire it and have shown the flexibility and the openness and the love nature of knowing that man is an extension of all men. So I think you really have to understand what oneness is to achieve a state of experiential awareness in that still magnetic light.
Yeah, it's a bit like getting a kindergarten kid and just putting him into deep science in tertiary education. It's just not going to happen, right? So it is a protection against the unworthy. Not that they are unworthy for all time. It's just that they haven't prepared themselves. They haven't had any intent. They haven't had any soul inner growth, and they just can't be allowed to damage themselves. The universe is kind and loving, and these ones will eventually be worthy, but they have to, they have to find the path. It's just not going to happen. And this is why it's very dangerous. And you are correct in saying that the best way to find these answers is through meditation and through stillness. But interesting you should say that most people cannot sit still or stay with their own company because they feel that they need some television in the background or some friends over to drink some beer with them, and they're always addicted to external sensations. So, they find no real purpose for stillness, and they think, well, it's a waste of time, and they get edgy and they get frustrated because stillness is just a waste of time. So, but anyway, in due time, all will eventually find this path. But it's interesting, Matt, how you see a lot of our flags are red, white, and blue, particularly the South Korean flag, and you see that it has red above and blue below, if I'm not wrong. So it's showing that the spirit positive half is above, which is red, and the blue part of the flag, the feminine receptive part, magnetic, is below, and this depicts the duality world. And I was looking at the word divine the other day, and it's so similar to divide, isn't it? And the Latin word for God is deus, which comes from the word for two, duo, or due. So due and dio which have to do with duality, is obviously in reference to the demiurge, or the created creator, which manifests as the red and the blue. But the creator, the Ein Sof, the causal one, this is the white, undivided, still magnetic light of cause. So, would you like to say something to that?
Sure. The still magnetic light is, for most intents and purposes, without feature. It's without measure. It's omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent stillness. And all fulcrums move, all motion moves upon a fulcrum of stillness. And we can see that in any of our own creations. Our center of stillness is the equator of ourselves in the chakra line. The center of stillness on a seesaw is the fulcrum upon which it moves. There's so many examples one can pick out, and the movement of your door moves upon a still wall, a beam, and just every motion you can see has a central point of stillness upon which it moves, and consciousness is no different. And I think when we realize what we're really all connected to, which is this colorless, sexless, still, undivided, silent light of mind which pervades the entire universe. It's in the center of every cell. All cells move around it. It's in the center of every hurricane, tornado, every motion in nature, every thought, every ring of every tree. It's omnipresent. It's throughout the galaxy, through the Milky Way and all other galaxies, and in the center of suns and planets. And there's nowhere the still magnetic light is not, including in every globalist, every policeman, and everybody that's bitching about policemen and globalists. It's in everything. There's nowhere that it isn't. And realizing that, it's hard for me to conceive of a world of violence knowing that everything is that connected, and through golden flux threads of light, as Walter called it, which I've happened to see only a couple occasions in my life, but it really is all interconnected, and it's sad that man doesn't get it. But the good thing is that he's beginning to come to this awareness. You know, there have been thousands of years of us racing this vehicle of humankind toward what we know not, but I certainly know it's not to live in chains forever. I do feel that it's to eventually bring out the greatest minds among us, which we're seeing happen on this planet in all forms of media and communication, especially on the internet. There are people that are just tired of the business as usual, and I don't think it's going to go on for too much longer. And the more that we realize the power of the fulcrum upon which we all move, then we can begin to actually demonstrate our power. And necessity is calling to all of us to begin demonstrating our power through ourselves, not through organizations, not through, politicians or political parties or movements or clubs or sporting events. It's calling for each of us to take part, to live with purpose and with meaning, and just take the chance and find that that's the real secret. Not just thinking things, but acting on them. You have to act, because Walter was very much not a Tibetan monk in the sense that he felt like, and even in the Divine Iliad, his revelation from God, if you will, the Creator, he wrote that men who sit in mountains, and think themselves more holy for suppressing desire, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, are doing a disservice. And because the universe of the Creator is purposeful, and it unfolds its purpose through desire, which is electricity, the only force which divides that white magnetic light of stillness into pairs of opposite forms that then must interchange to perpetuate itself. And this beautiful unfolding of this beautiful creation that we live in has absolute purpose in it. So those useless beggars by the side of the road who think themselves holy and then ask for alms in the process because they can't even afford to feed themselves are actually, in the eyes of the Creator, from the Divine Iliad perspective, not mimicking the Creator. It's indeed trying to set itself apart from, as if it's beyond desire. But anyone whose desire is unfolded through a loving way of giving service to their fellow men, which is a very feminine principle, which is why a lot of men have trouble with it, because they're, bang my chest kind of guys. I'm tough. I'm going to fight. I'm going to kill if they come get me, and blah blah blah. It's unfortunate, because you're just getting farther to the left or to the right, away from the fulcrum, which is where these realizations of oneness come from, where these ideas of how you can change the planet through your own thinking come from. And it's from where we're all going to return to when our bodies cease to move, because we will, like any other vibration, cease, and you just have to accept that fact. But know that while you're here, if you live with purpose and a sense of purposefulness of yourself, which is the unfoldment of your own ideas into the realm of mankind, then you will have a much greater and happier existence. You become master of your body instead of a slave to it. You live a mindful existence from the soul instead of a meaningless existence toward the senses. And I can't stress that enough, that I just hope that we can teach enough younger people in this world to, I aim to open a school one day, at least to try to teach the kids around my circle that I'm interacting with, who are my own kids and who are the nieces and nephews of my darling Lori. And, I'm just hoping that they can find their potentiality and live with purpose. And I, for one, aim to try at least to help that happen in my part of the world.
Oh, yeah. Look, it's on. It's on. In the book of Revelation, it talks about new scrolls being opened and new books being opened. This is in reference to books of enlightenment and a new way of teaching. It's not referring to this world's established way of teaching. And I'm talking about empire, folks. Empire has been an enemy of mankind for a long time. What would you say to that, my friend?
Well, empire certainly. There are no accidentally great men in this world. Leo wrote that, and I think really an arrogant man is not a humble man. A humble man has to be without arrogance, and he really understands more of a feminine principle that nature encompasses, that women who have so long been overlooked on this planet as being as powerful as men. In fact, I think we're going to find out just how damn powerful women are in the next 10 to 20 years, and I hope we do, because without that healthy balance of feminine in man's decision-making processes, we end up with man trying to play both mother and father to the world, and that's what causes an empire. If there is a woman at every man's side as her equal in all decision-making processes of government, we would have a very different world. I think there should be a man and a woman president that share the office at the same time. And I don't mean a Hillary Clinton either. I mean like a real woman who's a mother and not someone that's signed on to the agenda because they're masculinized by the system that they work for. We've all seen the pictures of her staring at the breasts of young actresses. It's disturbing to me. And anyways, I know what it's like to be a body dweller. I'm not without, my own experiences, but I'll tell you this much. To create a different world, you have to come to that understanding of what causes these kinds of things, and it's living without recognition of a creator, of a mind, of a universal connection to everything else. So it allows that kind of materialism, that kind of Randian objectivity where there is no subject. Subject is almost a mental illness, whereas Russell felt that seeing life as subjective was much more beautiful if you were balanced enough to be humble and pursue the goals of the spirit as opposed to the goals of the body, which are temporary goals. And that's why our civilizations have been temporary, because they're so unbalanced by man's thinking that he can be both mother and father to the world, that they keep collapsing. Just like a seesaw won't move, eventually or if you're driving your car on 3 tires instead of 4, it's eventually going to cause trouble in the system. So it's just a violation of universal law and natural balance that man's been committing his own evil and committing his own sin and calling it evil, making up devils and demons to take away his own responsibility due to his own lack of awareness of how God creates his universe in male and female forms. I mean, we have to, if we don't embrace humanity, then we're going to lose everything, because 20 times before this, we've lost everything. 20 civilizations and counting. This is about to be number 21, unless people can begin to open their minds and step outside of the damn box they put themselves into, and really start to take an active approach in giving love to their fellow men, and to do only that which will make you to be loved, as Leo said.
Yeah. Yeah, love and light, they go hand in hand. There is that undivided still light is pure love. Unconditioned consciousness and love. And although we do see love manifest in the dualistic world, it still has this contrast of good and evil, whereby people really do believe in the characters of evil. Whereas if they were standing in their higher minds, they would have, a more accurate perspective of what this is. It's just a playground, you see, where the divided light, electricity, is just playing around doing its thing. Sometimes it manifests as evil, and other times it manifests itself as good. But it all folds back into the one still undivided light of pure good and pure love and pure light.
Indeed, and that's one of the themes in the one of the hidden themes in the Matrix movie, and one of the similarities that Russell described in his 39-day illumination is that he could see through the walls. He could see people coming, like their energy. He said everything was connected by golden flux threads of light. He was completely severed from body awareness and existent wholly as mind. And of course, in the Matrix movie, Neo could see through the walls when he realized he was in the Matrix and what it really was. So in a kind of way, the white room in the Matrix, where nothing exists but what you desire shall come. And what did they desire but racks of guns, and there were the guns, but it's basically a similarity to that. And that's what it's describing is the path to illumination. And whether they even meant to do that or not, I don't know, but I think it's a good way to draw on a visual for people who don't quite get what it might be. But if all of us walked around in that state of being able to see the golden flux threads that connect all of us, if your mind was severed from your body sensations and you existed as holy mind, and this has been described by multiple mystics, sages. There's many in India who know this as like knowing that the stats are who won the World Series last. It's as common to them as it is for us to know that kind of stuff. But obviously, what I was getting at is if one was to be aware and could actually see in that state, then when you hurt anything or anyone around you, you would see like almost. In fact, you couldn't even do it. Put it that way. If you were in that light, you couldn't hurt anything. But if you could, you would see like a diminishment. Like if we were all in that light and somebody hurt another, instantaneously everyone would be aware of it. It would be like almost detrimental to the force of your own self. Like part of your own light would fade with the light that you hurt. And that tends to happen to us. We can almost feel that in our senses. But I think that the danger of materialism is that the senses become so strong that what is love and the real connection to everything else is weakened in the process. And I see some of the most disgusting arguments and mean-spirited things that I know of come from people that are just so sense-based that they feel whatever they want to do is all right, and everyone should kind of get out of their way and bow down and worship them. And that's kind of that sickness where they've turned their desire outward toward their senses instead of what masters have always said and mystics throughout time immemorial is to turn your focus inward, inner sensory perception of the internal world. And that's one way we can get away from materialism is by pursuing the inward goal instead of the outward one.
Yeah, for sure. And this is why the the world we live in has plenty of distractions. There's lots of shows on TV. There's more channels than you can ever watch. There's more stuff to do. There's spread and circus everywhere. Anything to keep you distracted from your true self and from realizing that these golden threads of light join us all together. And what you said there, Matt, about how if someone is hurting or is suffering, that we can feel it. I mean, this is already going on, but we're not aware of it. But I mean, if there's only a handful of impoverished, suffering people on the planet, that's enough to cause even the richest and most comfortable individual on the planet to be deprived of some of his own joy and bliss. Because if there is one person suffering, then we all suffer. Now, a lot of people don't understand how that works because they're so caught up in the materialist paradigm that, you know, while the gravy train has still got plenty of gravy on it and they're, you know, got plenty of Cuban cigars to smoke and caviar and champagne, they sort of make themselves numb to the suffering of others because they're having a good ride right now, you see. But really, anyone else who is suffering on the planet will bring that suffering back to each one's breast. So this is why it's very important to watch what you say and what you think and how you treat other people, because it does cause you to suffer. I know that when I have an anger fit, a fit of anger, I know how much it causes me to suffer. It causes me days of catching up. My fleshly organism just almost goes into shutdown. You know, my liver suffers, my kidneys, my breathing, my sleep. It's just not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it to participate in any of the anger emotions, friends. Fear, anger, jealousy, all of that is just really, really kindergarten, childish stuff. And you only participate in that when you really believe in the senses and the material world and really are subjecting yourself to it and living in that paradigm. This is where all the pain and suffering comes from, folks. So it's time now to realize and know who you are. Know that you are a divine entity connected directly to the source. And as you said, Matt, before, beautifully, so beautifully, that we all have the seat of our souls in the heart and in the pineal gland, and we all have this. We all have this divine spark in us. And we can't deny that. That's how we live and exist. And so the sooner we acknowledge this and go into that place to dwell, the better it will be for us and for humanity in general.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and when you look around today, it's obvious that this is going on. It is going on. People are waking up, and it's beautiful to see. Hopefully, it will be quick enough. I'm pretty positive that it will be, and we will have that wonderful world that we've always felt in our hearts and minds. Now, from my experience, see, I've lived in the fictional world, and I lived really good and hard in that world. For instance, I was a Jehovah's Witness knocking on people's doors, and I was zealous. Oh, wow, was I zealous. Bible in one hand, and I was knock on those doors, 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't care who came to the door, you know. I mean, I wasn't afraid. And because I thought I was bringing a message of salvation to people, you know. the Watchtower and Awake magazine in my right hand, Bible in the left hand, and I'd go a-knocking. Now, friends, I can assure you that I've awoken from that world. And as the highway to hell is paved with good intentions, rest assured a lot of zealous people will come to you in the name of Jesus and in the name of their fictional doctrines and try to save you. One thing I can say is that I'm thankful that I have awoken from that world, because that's the materialistic 5 sense world where you are led to believe that you are saved and you are safe and you are correct and that everybody else is wrong. And what this is doing is this is actually a way of the elites harvesting our energy by dividing us into the Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Seventh-day Adventists, etc. And rather than acknowledging the light that each other individual has in their fleshly organism that is centered in the heart, we are denying them that. We are denying them access to the divine because we have found it and they haven't. Now, this is, of course, when you live in the fictional world, the construct that the world has been promoting and set up for us to divide us. And so what I'm seeing, and I'm sure you are too, Matt, is that people are waking up to this and realizing how harmful this is and starting to see more the unity in the world rather than the division. And how this is coming about is, of course, very, very wonderful. It can be explained by the cycles. We know that we've lived in cycles of dark energy called the Dark Ages, and we know that we've had golden ages and beautiful high consciousness has visited this planet many, many times. Walter Russell makes reference to this and makes mention to the fact that many civilizations have passed and gone because they weren't able to raise the level of love and consciousness high enough. But then again, many individuals have been saved from this condition by reaching the higher mind. So let's hope that we will reach critical mass at some stage very, very early in the near future and avert the tragedies and cataclysms that have happened in the past.
That is a hope for all of us, my friend. And I think one of the big things, the big tenets that we have to always remember is to, if you know it, share it. You know, especially if you're aware, even to an inkling, that there's a certain connection between everything, then you begin to unfold that awareness. And it's real important that you balance your thinking with action, too, because now more than ever, I mean, I would love for 2012 to be a date of, you know, where the 21st hits and there's some galactic alignment, which many say there are, and there's a real energy that comes when we cross the ecliptic of the Milky Way, if in fact that's what we're doing, which NASA says we're not, but then others say we are. There's so many things that could happen in this day to come, but whatever happens, no matter what, I think many of us have been on the path to become better people, to become good characters, to work hard. You know, there are no accidentally great people. And one of the main tenets of Russellian science and philosophy is the teaching of one unfolding their own genius. And it's not to worship any man over another. It's simply to become aware of the power within yourself. That's the greatest thing I learned about Russell. And I feel like I've demonstrated it. I've got music on my site. I've got these 15 videos that we produced, literally maybe 8,000 to 10,000 hours of just, you know, putting our heads together on Skyping, and all this stuff we've done is sort of a demonstration. And it was a way of saying thank you, Walter, and just sharing in that ecstasy of knowing that there are so many wonderful things to be done at your own fingertips. Don't look for it from others' fingertips, because then you're just taking their ideas and adopting them as your own, which is kind of like parodying or a cheap form of plagiarism. You have an individual inside yourself that is unique. Every blade of grass on the earth is slightly different than every other blade of grass. I think that there is a grant given to a university to actually research that, and they never found two alike. Under electron microscope magnification and whatnot, there's slight variances and twins that aren't perceivable to the eye, but there are definite differences. Everything is unique and different. I think that when we begin to manifest this awareness that we're our own unique piece of creation, and the entire awareness of all of creation, the entire power of it is within us. And that's really the turning away from the material world into the internal, turning your eyes and your senses inward toward the soul instead of outward toward your body. And that actually increases your health. It increases, things like you said earlier about fear and anger and hate actually create a cell distortion in what should be a nice spherical pattern of cellular structure. You actually distort it. So I avoid things like, big blow-up movies and violent movies and things, because it actually distorts your cellular patterns. And so there's so much of that available. You have to really think. And this is where becoming more about, who you want to be. What is life? What is life? Well, the answer I like to give to that is it's whatever you think it is. So, and that's really something you need to think about for years. Well, if I'm responsible for my life, then that means what I think actually begins to create and manifest that kind of thing. It's not that you alter matter, it's that you act in a certain way that alters your life. So, I don't agree that we can look at something and necessarily make it alter its matter, or, we take away things from our empirical observations that we think are real. But when you lead a mind existence with purpose, then you begin to unfold an entirely new set of awarenesses that are more like knowing with your mind as opposed to groping in the dark of the sense-based world. But they do work in tandem. They just become much more amplified toward a more realistic, empowered sort of approach to life, that you can actually begin to manifest change. And then we can begin to turn this world around, whether 2012 does anything or not. We have to go on as if nothing's going to happen, as if these people are always going to be in charge. Because if we give them an inch, they take a mile. But if we take an inch, we gain a mile. And the more of us that do this, the more silly they become in the eyes of the rest of the world. And I'm telling you, man, there's no other way that we're going to achieve the kind of world brotherhood and sisterhood if we do anything other than try to manifest our true purpose. And I think the more of us that do that, then we can begin to actually see a real effect in the world. If a group of guys get together and they're just like, oh, let's go kill all these bastards, which may happen because they've created such an imbalance that there's plenty of ignorant people out there who will just shoot anybody for the fun of it. But, it tends to be in civilization collapses, the poor end up attacking the 1% of the civilization who took everything to make them poor. So you have this clash. It's observable. The same effects happened in the Roman Empire. They happened in Babylon, in Greece, in Sumeria. A certain percentage, even the Mayans, the ruling elite, the priesthood. It just eventually it just tends to collapse because it's unbalanced. So the only way we're going to create balance is to exhibit balance in our own lives. You men out there, you need to learn to respect the feminine, make her your equal. Do the little things that it takes. A thing of flowers and candy on Valentine's Day is not going to make up for being an asshole 364 of the other days of the year. You have to do little things. You have to help and give. That's the way nature does it. When we mimic nature in our own relationships, we'll have better relationships. When we mimic nature in our energy use, we'll have clean and free, pollution-free energy. When we mimic nature in our killing of animals, we'll have a lot less needless death, a lot less bad food. We just need to mimic nature basically in everything we do, and nature is the love principle of this philosophy. It's realizing that you have a definite effect on your world by the way you think. And so it's a real responsibility that most people shun. They'd rather blame a reptilian race from the star system Draconis instead of taking responsibility that there might just be some people on the planet who think with their reptilian brains and are 100% bred to be sense-based and to acquire riches of the earth in some sort of a game where they feel like he who has the most shit wins. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing dominate our world. It's man-dominated. The women that are in positions of power sharing this power with men are masculinized. They have no sense of the feminine. Their kids grow up without the love that's required to give them the balance they need to rise up from the reptilian brain. So how are we going to beat this? Kill them all off to become reptiles and then do exactly what they're doing? Or are we going to do something different that actually makes a change in the world? You know, my friend John Sheliak said we have to start being that which we wish to see. We have to be the new. Think of it as a building that's just getting designed. You know, we have to clear the ground. We have to lay the foundation. And if those among us that are brave enough to be yourselves out there would just say, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the chance and be myself. Doesn't mean you need to quit your job or stop paying your child support or be a jerk off to your boss or anything like that. It just means you're going to take the chance and go within yourself and say, you know, I used to paint when I was a kid. I remember my mom and dad would say, you know, oh, your paintings look so nice. You know, I'm going to try and paint again, or I'm going to write some music. I used to play guitar or trumpet in the band. Get that thing out. Start working something creative in your life. Make a difference. Add to the amount of creativity in this world. Don't just sit and watch the news or listen to the pundits go on and scream and yell about how bad the world is, or that you need to make Obama posters and staple them to a phone pole. That's not original. You know, everybody can point out the trouble, but who can add some beauty to the world? That's why I love artists, because they do. And every man and woman on this planet is an artist. They're their own artists. They just need to figure out what it is they do that's good. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing in the world that feels better than when you create something that you play for somebody like a song, and they look at you and give you this look, and they get goosebumps on their arms and go, you wrote that? That's beautiful. And then that inspires 10 other people, and just for a brief moment, our world is a better place. Now imagine if millions and millions and millions of us just started doing that and began to replace the values of what the current paradigm offers us, which is a completely materialistic, divided reality. They reinforce the division between everybody daily, which is an illusion. There is no division. You know, there's only the division between us and our awareness of our higher potential power that we all possess. And I, for one, aim to help people realize that power. It's free. No man should charge money to tell somebody that that's what they have inherently. And that's why Robert and I we do this without asking, or we don't want donate. We'll accept a donation, I'll tell you that much, but we're not going to go out and ask for it or charge for our work. Or, you know, I just feel like people should have that knowledge. And the more of us that do this, we will see a change in 2012. That will be the change because we actually worked for it. It's got to come from action. We have to think and balance it with action. Otherwise, it's just an idea that will never sprout in this world of illusion.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that world that we wish can be achievable, wouldn't it be great if we just had, you know, sort of 8 minutes of extreme consciousness on the 21st of December 2012. We all woke up, realized that we are all the one consciousness having individual experiences, and we could just start afresh. It would be perfect because everybody would see, their eyes would be opened. That would be ideal. See, the problem with today's world, Matt, and I'm sure you see this, is that the materialistic reptilian brain types that you describe that believe that the more shit you can collect in your name that you own, the more powerful and important you are in this world. Thousands of years ago, these types were considered the dumbasses, and they knew they were the dumbasses. And the musicians, music coming from the root magi, magic, and the magicians, the magi and the astrologers and the musicians and the artists, they were known to be the way showers. So everything was, everything was in its correct perspective. The aristocratic, deserving ones, and I'm using the word aristocratic in its true Greek meaning, which means aristos means the worthy, deserving ones to be in high places in society. So what's happened with this world, with empire, is that they've turned that around. They've made the morons, they've made the morons and the materialistic ones appear to be the heroes. So you've got all this creature worship, and it's the blind leading blind. So they've inverted it. They've changed it around, you see. When the white people went to the Americas, they discovered that all of the indigenous tribes had only the wisest elders as chiefs. And they soon put an end to that. But there was sort of a matriarchal system. Same thing happened in this country. The Aboriginals were very matriarchal. Still to this day, they are matriarchal. And I've witnessed this personally firsthand by going out into the centre of Australia and having contact with many Aboriginal tribes. And I know that they are matriarchal. But that system enabled everyone to see who were the less enlightened ones and who were the truly enlightened ones, and they had their respective posts and positions in society. That's all been turned around. This is where the confusion lies. You see, we've got morons like George Bush, blind leading the blind, for instance, and this is repeated on every level in our society, where we have undeserving ones in extremely powerful positions of power. And it's definitely upside down. Hopefully that will change in the next few weeks.
Well, we can only hope, Santos. I mean, it's a long road. Changes don't come by overnight acceptance. They come by way of many funerals, generally. And I forget who said that, but it's true for most intents and purposes.
Yeah. Now, just to change the subject, Matt, I know you're friends with Jason Verbelli. I'm hoping to have him on my show soon because he's just released some papers. Have you seen his work?
I've seen a lot of his work, but I haven't seen these specific papers you're talking about. Is it on sonoluminescence?
I forget the site. I will dig it up, but I've seen he's released about 20 papers on Walter Russell, and they're really good reads. I've read a couple of them, and absolutely exquisite stuff what he's doing. He's really released some great information. So I thought you might have some insights to that, but certainly he's doing a great job.
He sure is, and Jason, if you listen to this, I need an article from you for the newsletter. So I invited him in before, and he wasn't able. He's got a busy schedule, but he's doing good work out there to bring attention to Dr. Bod. He's doing good work to bring attention to Walter Russell. He's got some very insightful points, and he's been one of the ones who has helped further the message of divine science and the science of mind itself to give people a deeper outlook on life and space, and a new kind of physics that we can draw from mind as the fulcrum instead of from the senses to define our universe in much better ways.
Yeah, and going to the higher mind is really, like you said before, it's also going into the heart. Because you would have to have a good heart condition before you can access the higher mind. And so it's hand and glove, wouldn't you say, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, the alchemical writings and pictures denote the marriage of opposites, and you could say in one sense the hemispheres are opposites. There's many kinds of opposites, and the left and right hemispheres of mind are, when they're married together or become aware of itself as one instead of itself as two. And two, I would describe, there's always a voice in most people's heads. You could call it the thinker. And the thinker is never saying, your body never says what the thinker is really thinking, because if you did, you'd probably get fired from your job, be divorced in a week, and multiple other changes would happen immediately. So when that marriage happens between heart and mind, and the heart becomes the fulcrum, which is the central chakra, it's the central energy center, which extends in two directions, north and south, you could say. At least in our perspective, it would actually be east and west on the equator. But that marriage is really where the mind becomes unified. It's that sacred alchemical wedding where the male and female perspectives of an individual become their reality, and that's where the moment of now is achieved. And now backwards means you've won. You've won the game of duality by marrying the two together and thinking as a whole. It's divine science. It's divine omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence. And it's there that one can wakingly stay when they work. And it takes work. It takes awareness to be aware of it. It's not so much work, I guess. It's more of I just mean years of focus and stuff like that, and the effect of work, but more the awareness of internal reality, which is that your mind is operating a machine, but the machine is not you. Your money is not you. Your possessions are not you. Your Nike shirt and Adidas shoes are not you. These are not us, and neither are these bodies. Our bodies are literally vehicles for driving our consciousness, and our consciousness is omnipresent, but it's omnipresent in this point. And the more it can expand into even more omnipresence, I guess you could say. There's really no, I guess, consciousness on a sub level, as Walter would say. Instinct is basically God control. Instinct is what you see in the animal kingdom throughout nature. Everything is pretty much instinctual. Man is the only creature that has been freed from nature's control. We have actually developed an ability to choose, and whether or not that's given by the Creator or just an effect of bodies that become more advanced than others, we do possess one uncanny quality that most of all other nature doesn't, is we can choose not to think instinctually. And an instinct tends to be more the lower brain kind of existences, and that's what we're dealing with. These people in control, I don't even think they're smart enough that they actually conspired to come together and do this, as much as it's so instinctual in them that they could not help themselves, because say the degree of consciousness in a reptilian brain is 3%, then your mammalian would be add another, say, 10%. You're working with 13 there. And then add another, the neocortex is the biology of transcendence. Joseph Chilton Pierce said the kids that are born with big prefrontal lobes are actually exhibiting, more connection to the inner mind. And the prefrontal has pathways that connect to the heart as well as the pineal. So, this is a very real marriage when you become aware of the heart and mind working in unison, and you silence that voice that is always nagging, which is that ego in you, that external self, always crying to get out, always crying to be noticed, crying to be listened to. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it feels hate, anger. It's all the negative side of ourselves. But I'm all with the man who said, "Be careful casting out your demons, because you may be casting out the very best part of yourself." I'm not saying overshadow that voice. Sometimes it's relevant, especially in situations where there's survival things, or that can be very important. But overall, the thinking of holistic mind and sacred science and the living philosophy of life is to wakingly be in the central part of yourself, the fulcrum of yourself, move through life in the now. And sure, you can have goals, but know that to achieve them, you must work for them. And everything must be in balance. And the more that we create balance and harmony in our own existences, the more we can extend that harmony and balance outward toward our neighborhood, toward our states, toward our countries, and eventually toward the entire world. And there's really no other way to unify humanity than in that process that I can see. I mean, other than if there's an alignment, of course, and we get that jolt from the center plane of the Milky Way, that would be nice. But if not, man, let's not give up. You know, let's keep pushing forward no matter what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, we'll just have a short break. We're at the top of the hour now, so you can get yourself a cup of tea and just relax, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes. So, listeners, hang in there. We've got Matt Presti. We're waiting for Robert O'Tay. He will be hopefully with us in the second hour. If not, Matt's doing real fine on his own. So I think we've got a good formula here. So let's have a break, and perhaps we can talk about the white light when we get back. I was just thinking when you were talking about the heart chakra, and I remembered that the heart chakra is green and the solar plexus is yellow, and I'd be inclined to think that the white light is more centered to the yellow, whereas the heart chakra is green. So let's talk about where the white light comes from, if you have any thoughts on that. If not, fine, but
sure thing.
Might be a good thing to open up the second hour with. Alrighty, so we'll take a break and we'll catch you folks in 3 minutes. Thank you very much. All right, folks, we are back, and thanks for hanging in there. Now, we had a thought about the white light before the break, and I've been under the impression that the white light would be centered in the yellow chakra, which is the solar plexus, but it would have to be centered in the green heart chakra because that's the center. Would that be right, Matt? Or is my logic skew-iff?
Well, there's multiple ways we can look at this. As I said earlier, in the home study course of the Russells, they wrote that the mind was located in the pineal gland, which is reflected in our Unit 11, Part 11 on divine illumination. But since we've found passages in the latest distillation of their work, which their last writing jointly between Walter and Leo was Atomic Suicide, where it said in multiple places that the seat of the soul was between the two pulsation sides of the heart itself, the center of the twin opposing vortices. And if I'm correct, is not the heart chakra the fourth one? It's the center between the three on the top and the three on the bottom. So I would think that, myself personally, I would think that the unison of that heart and mind itself, the pineal and the center of the heart, if you will, that joining together is the visionary awareness of your oneness, as it were. So I would say probably in reference to the question on yellow is the anode condition of wound up matter, but there still is a center in it, which is the shaft of invisibility, the magnetic or the gravity shaft that extends in two directions, north and south. So that's an extension of that stillness, which is not perceivable by our senses again. So yellow definitely being something our senses perceive because we name it and we can call it something, but we can't really name or describe stillness or silence because it doesn't have attributes. So if in the center of that yellow, you could find that marriage at equator, then you would know that somewhere in that middle, in that center of that body, is that stillness as well, because it exists on the three cube planes, the three interior planes of the cube, in terms of three-dimensional reality.
Wow. Yeah, Walter Russell, in his new concept of the universe, says, sound vibrations of a harp string are an electrical effect. The electrical vibrations of sound are a division of undivided silence. How beautiful and simple it is. Wow.
And
a
guitar, exactly. A guitar string doesn't pluck itself. It takes a mind to pluck any string. So mind, again, there is causal. There's another experiment. You want to see how mind is causal? Just, see if a guitar string will pluck itself. You could sit there for life ages of the earth and it'll never happen. But a man can certainly mindfully reach his finger out and pluck a guitar string and create a temporary vibration which comes from stillness and returns to it. And Santos, I want to say I have some running to do. I know Robert is coming on with you for this next hour, and he's on the phone line as far as I know. So I'm going to say thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak with you. And I think you and Robert should have a great conversation on the scientific end of this. And I'm going to listen into this and make sure at least that he gets on and joins with you and maybe say hello to him real quick. But thanks for having me on, and I appreciate the chance to talk too much.
You beauty. Thanks, Matt, and we'll certainly do this again. So thank you very kindly. And Robert, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks a lot, Santos. Sorry for the confusion. You said 6 p.m. I guess you were talking Matt 6 p.m.
Oh, okay. So
See, I'm on the West Coast, 2 hours difference. That would have been 4 o'clock for me. So I was waiting another 45 minutes to come on. So I am here now. Just got done working.
Yeah, dang, I forgot you guys were you're on the opposite sides. Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
My
no
apologies.
No worries at all. He's at the, Central Standard Time, and I'm at Pacific.
Gotcha. Okay.
2 hours difference. So I got to hear what you all were saying. I might just add a little bit to what you were talking about. The yellow, the suns, the anode spheres, are created from the yellow of the orange and the yellow of the green, which are male and female. The hemispheres are separated by the still magnetic light, which is white. And so the male and female each inhabit one half of a sphere. They don't cross over. It's not like the nuclear theory of the atom, where you have these electrons flying all over in every which way. They spin in rings which are parallel to the cathode planes. So it's an impossibility. The nuclear theory of the atom is an absolute impossibility. It goes completely against nature. And what's happened is at the wave field amplitude, the 404 position, as Walter Russell calls it, the sphere is shared equally by male and female. It's perfect balance.
Would that be in the north-south or an east-westerly projection?
You could consider it north-south. North would be male and south female, and they don't cross over. They each have their own. The line of demarcation would be the ecliptic of the sphere, the equatorial plane, as it were.
Beautiful. And so the white light, we're looking for it in the body. Since the heart is the middle chakra, it should dwell in the heart, in the green, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. As Frank Chester proved with his laborious efforts, his empirical efforts in studying the heart, he was able to determine that the heart is actually twin opposing vortices. And so I don't know if that occurring anywhere else in the human body. That's the way nature functions, from atoms to galaxies to suns. Everything's the same. There's a twin opposing vortex that is centered by a point of stillness. That is the fulcrum point of omnipresent light, the Creator's desire to express, and it has two levers. Those two levers would be the twin opposing vortices, which are male and female. It's a sex-divided universe. So the spheres are in the human heart is the same. Everything is the same. As above, so below. As within, I think is more correct, as without, because our heart is functioning according to the very same principles that the atom and the sun and the galaxy are. So it's just it's the divine signature of the architect. The divine architect is the spiraling phi, which is centered by stillness. And Frank Chester actually proved that, with his chestahedron. That's the magnetic space geometry which gives form to the human heart. It's the same kind of space geometry that the cube is in relationship to the sphere.
Wow. Absolutely mind-boggling. It's so simple. I was reading from the New Concept of the Universe book with Matt, how it talks about sound coming from undivided stillness and goes into division to create sound and then goes back into the stillness. I mean, what a better way to explain how light works. It's the same principle, and it's simple.
Absolutely. And it's a sex-divided universe. It's male and female. He had made revisions from his earlier work where he talked about, for instance, positive and negative electricity. Well, if you do that, then you're saying, well, positive equals male and negative equals female, and that's all wrong. It's these terms that have been forced onto these observations, in fact, give a very false understanding of what's going on. It's a sex-divided universe. Male is equally as charged as female. They're two anodes, which give back and forth to each other through rhythmic balanced interchange, each becoming the other.
Yes, the self-begotten. So Ra, in the mythologies, Ra becomes El, and then El becomes Ra. And so Isis becomes Osiris, and Osiris becomes Isis. They are just forever changing their position, but it's always the one thing, isn't it?
Right, everything's bisexual. Everything is in and through each other. So the anode and the cathode are constantly changing in between each other. So you can't have male without female or female without male. everything in the universe. That's like, saying there's something as such as a monopole. It's impossible. Or a charged particle, for that matter, because a singly charged particle that's either positive or negative. It's an impossibility. Everything's bisexual. Everything's sex divided. It has to have its opposite mate.
Yeah. So when scientists are finding an electrically charged particle, that's simply because they have just centered their concentration on that instant in time when that energy manifests in the charged polarity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could just look at a so-called negatively charged particle as an expanding particle, and one that's positively charged, according to their terminology, as being one that's charging or discharging. So you don't need positive and negative and all these terms that academia has come up to describe these with.
Oh wow! It just gets more and more simple. It's staggering, because what they've done in the consensus education world is they've confounded all this, and they've divided into multitudinous individual studies. You can study the neutrino forever. You can study, an electron forever. There's so many books written on electrons, and my God, what a waste of energy.
It goes on and on. It's ridiculous. I had a really great professor at UC San Diego, a guy named Jimmy Cheatham, who was a trombone player for Count Basie and other great bands of his time period. And he started to tell me, this thing here in this university, it's all about the compartmentalization of consciousness. And it's true. They program people into these little individual boxes, where nobody talks to anybody else, and they've got their own little belief systems. And it's completely destroyed the ability to perceive these things holistically to people that have gone through the indoctrination process.
Yep. How sad that is.
Yeah, that's where Walter Russell and Schauberg and a lot of these other guys, Ed Leeds Skellman, they all had like fourth-grade educations or whatever. They left school because they knew it was stupid. And that was to their greatest benefit, that they didn't go through the massive indoctrination that all of us have had to systematically deprogram ourselves from. Because, I have like 7 years of college. I've been through engineering school and chemistry and physics and all that stuff. I heard all their bullshit face to face, and I didn't buy it then, and obviously I don't buy it now because I've seen it all disproved. But it's to our detriment to having gone through the system. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the door you had to walk through. I did that with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I always had cognitive dissonance. I would go to the meetings and I would accept that it's the true religion. Yes, only Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be saved. Okay, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. I'm going to be saved. But there was always cognitive dissonance. And I would suggest that it's not just cognitive. I think it's in the heart. I think the heart knows what is truth. You will know the truth.
Yeah. That's where it's all. Knowing comes from the heart. Thinking comes from the brain. But the funny thing about the Jehovah's Witnesses is only 144,000 are going to be saved according to them, and there's millions of them. So what happens to the rest of them?
Well, they've accommodated the other ones, and they've called them the great crowd of other sheep, which will live on the earth in the paradise for 1,000 years, and the 144,000 will go up to heaven as kings and priests. And there's only about 6,000 of the remnant left on the earth, and they're waiting to die and then go to the heavens, you see, to join the other 144,000. But the trick is this. This is the trick, all right? I can debunk the Jehovah's Witnesses in 5 minutes. In 1935, prior to 1935, the Jehovah's Witnesses believed that there would only be 144,000 saved out of all the people who have ever lived on the earth. Then they changed it because they realized that their numbers were swelling. There was like 2 million. Yeah. So they changed that to accommodate the other sheep that will be saved and live on the earth. But the thing is, back then there was only about I think there was only about 30,000 of the anointed ones actually left, and they were in their 80s and 90s, right? So if you count, give it another decade, if you count to, say, 1945, most of those that were in their 90s and 80s would have dropped dead. There would have been 5,000 left in 45. How come today, 2012, there are still about 7,000 or 8,000 lingering on the earth? I mean, they are debunked by their own stupidity, really. But of course,
that's why I avoid religions altogether. It's just all a bunch of crap.
Yeah, they subvert each individual's heart, because the truth, knowing, is in the heart, right? And so they subvert the heart, and they pull it out. They give you a new doctrine, and you are forever in the mode of cognitive dissonance. I'm glad that I came out of it, because when I saw the light and started realizing that the truth is in the books that they told you not to read, then the cognitive dissonance went away and answers just poured in. I didn't even ask the questions.
Yeah.
I just get answers daily now. Daily, I only get answers to my questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I share your experience. I went through the Christian church myself, in a early age, and I used to play guitar in the church and had lots of friends and Bible study and all that until my mid-20s, and then I started reading some comparative mythology and started seeing people like Gerald Massey and stuff, and they started breaking down the actual symbolism. Alvin Boyd Kuhn, we also mentioned him earlier. Great men that had extreme understanding of what the true meanings of these things were, but they weren't, these literalistic histories as the fundamentalists would have you believe.
Yeah, exactly. The historical thread that is in our mythologies is just that. It's just a thread. It's just something to lean on, to give us to pin the mythologies to something that we can relate to, so to speak, because humans are always looking for the historical, tangible, something that they can relate to and grab to make it real. But certainly, as Manly P. Hall puts it, the historical rendition of the scriptures is the bottommost. It's the least meaningful, and it is there just as a prop, as you would have on the theatre, just to sort of embellish the mythology. It's not the other way around. All scripture is pure mythology, and mythology is the sublimest of truths, which are not for the profane. It's for those...
Absolutely. The logical level of this has an extreme importance if we understand it mythologically. It's the literalist aspect of it, like, that Jesus died on the cross and you should feel guilty. He died for your sins and you're going to hell, if you don't believe that he died on the cross. It was all this crap, this dogma crap that came along later that reversed the actual meaning of all this. And basically it enslaves you instead of liberating you. And that's what the mythology is there for, is to take you to a higher level of understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And Walter Russell understood this. He did refer to a historical Jesus from time to time, but he did not do that in the same way as the literalists. He knew that as he had ascended into his higher mind, so did Yeshua ben Pandira, or whoever it was, that history likes to just go back and isolate one individual. It might have been a few individuals. Nonetheless, if it was a saviour, it's because the person saved themselves. They saved their own consciousness, and therefore they are able to be an example of salvation, and only in that sense are they to be considered as saviours. For instance, when it comes to the electric universe and knowing the mind of God and how the universe works, Walter Russell can easily be considered a saviour because he has saved us from a lot of ignorance. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, he taught us about the magnetic universe, which is never discussed about electric universe theorists. They don't want to understand that the Creator is actually the cause of everything, you know. They don't want to accept that because it goes against academicism and this agnosticism and atheism, which pervade academicism, unfortunately.
Yep, absolutely. I'm 100% with you there. It's unfortunate that a lot of great-minded men have devoted themselves to trying to enlighten people, but still hanging on to Newtonian physics and all of this ancient stuff that has been debunked. And it's impossible to go forward with this sort of a mindset. We just have to let go, you know, of the nuclear atom and protons and electrons. It's a thought wave universe. That means that thoughts, electrically charged thoughts, are producing all the effects, and they come from the still magnetic light, undivided, which is God.
Exactly. And it's laughable. You know, the academic position is extremely laughable because they've got a sterilized, dumbed-down view of what physics is now. Guys like Newton were extremely spiritual. I mean, he was the Priory of Sion. The guy studied the Bible. He was into alchemy and transmutation and all these esoteric arts, which, you know, these people in academia now would just be horrified to be associated with this. But they've given them the sterilized view of who Newton was and Kepler and these other people, and so they can live in this fantasy world where they can remove the Creator from its creation. And these, even their foundational, these theorists, you know, like Newton and Kepler, they believed in a Creator, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. They've pretty much sterilized the image of these scientists, made them appear to be purely mechanical and as if their theories were based on a material evolution, and which they weren't.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, this is our opportunity to clear that up and help people to see what a lot of these great thinkers and knowers of the past really, really mean. You know, and it's unfortunate to see a lot of repeaters that continue to defame many of the greater, you know, the greater thinkers of the past and lump them all in with the same lot of just, you know, pure materialist scientists. It's not the case. It's absolutely not the case. Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, all these guys, they were, you know, they understood the divinity and the Creator, and this is where they acknowledged that their great genius came from. They never ever detached themselves from the Creator. And the greatest minds that ever lived were ones that expounded on, you know, on the the Creator and the divine. Pythagoras, Hermes, Orpheus, Plato, Socrates, Seneca, Boethius, and the list goes on and on and on. But we don't get this in our universities. They don't teach it that way.
No, not by any means at all. It's a completely sterilized version, you know, that the Creator's been removed completely. And you're laughed at. You're ridiculed for believing in a Creator. I mean, these people would rather believe in the idiocy of unintelligent design, you know, as hawked by fools like Leonard Susskind from Stanford University. You know, somehow, magically, after the Big Wank, all these little particles just got together and created life and intelligence. I mean, it's you know, vomit-inducing is all I can say. It's just so absurd and ridiculous, and this is the kind of crap people go to universities to get their head stuff full of, you know, and they're paying a lot of money to listen to these lies. Hello?
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. I do apologise to the listeners. I was just adding to your comment there, Robert, that it's the blind leading the blind. They
Can you hear me? I'm
yes,
back.
I can.
Got cut off.
You dropped
Sorry,
off
man.
too, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
well,
you hear
I
me?
was speaking into the mic, but I was mute. I had my mic muted, so there must have been about 20 seconds of silence there for the listeners, for which I apologise. But I was saying there that, unfortunately, they support the blind ones that are leading the blind. They don't give any money or support to people who are going to debunk their theories, which will really just chop the profit that they're making from their lies right from under their legs. And this is why they must silence the wise one. You'll find that the one that knows, the one that has got any valid or true information to share with humanity to enlighten them, you'll find that they are either in a mental asylum, in jail, they've been whacked, or they've gone over the border to practice their medicine, like Jim Humble, for instance. They've been ridiculed, like, for instance, John Marco Allegro, the Dead Sea scholar that was ridiculed in the 70s for teaching that the Essenes were ingesting Amanita muscaria mushrooms, and that was the consciousness that they equated with Christ the King. Therefore, the Essenes and all the Dead Sea Scrolls did not acknowledge a historical Jesus, didn't need one. It was the Jesus within, the story that has always been from the start of, if you can say, the start of time, and will be till the end of time. The Gospels will always refer to an allegorical Jesus. It will always refer to consciousness and electricity and magnetism and the archetypes of nature. It will never refer to human beings on a historical plane. And so guys like John Marco Allegro were ridiculed. He lost his reputation around the world. They destroyed it. The Jesuits and the Vatican went after him, and Robert Eisenman, and they absolutely destroyed their careers simply because they told the truth about the Dead Sea Scrolls. There is nothing in those scrolls which add to the fictional, monotheistic, patriarchal, hierarchical, bullshit Christian modern-day system. It just ain't going to work. It's a fiction, based on a fiction, invented by the Romans for the purpose of enslavement, and look at how many slaves they've got. And they're all named. And they're all branded, too. Some of them call themselves Jehovah's Witnesses, moo, moo. Some of them call themselves Mormons, but they're all morons, and they're all brainwashed by the fictional vicarious salvation, which ain't never, ever, ever going to happen. Because if you don't save yourself, you will never be worthy to enter the higher realms by any universe, by any standard.
Yeah, and Allegro showed in great detail how all the stuff was plagiarized from Egyptian mythology. You know, he exposed how it was all based on Horus, Isis, and Osiris. You know, so they don't want people knowing that. You know, and they don't want people knowing it's just a rewrite. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. In his great work on the holy mushroom, he did expound there how the Egyptians had it absolutely correct, and all of their animals and whatnot are just purely their mythological way of talking about the archetypes, the netas, from which we get the word nature. And the Christians actually call those netas angels. So it's quite hypocritical that they have their system of angels. Oh yes, Michael and Raphael and everything like that, but there's this one bearded monotheistic dude who trumps them all. And yet, that's not how it works. Nature, the netas, the angels, these are all aspects of the one. They are all archetypal aspects of the one, because there are many attributes to this one. It's not just the one simple, characterless entity. There's much there to be learnt about this one, and it's expressed through the dualistic world, but it is not. It is still just the thinking world of divided lights. The true mind of God and the knowing mind of God exists in stillness.
Absolutely.
You can elaborate much better on that, please, Robert, if you've got any thoughts.
Well, scientifically speaking, it's the magnetic universe of stillness. The magnetic universe both centers and bounds the electric universe in the cubic wave fields. The points and shafts that make up the gravity at the center of a sphere are still magnetic light. It's the point which is extended into a sex-divided north and south, male-female, spherical body. But also the 6 planes of zero curvature, absolute cold, and motionlessness is the magnetic universe also still magnetic light. So it's omnipresent. But it controls all the spiraling motions which give form to what people are calling our electric universe of matter, so-called matter. When in reality there's nothing but different pressure conditions of light. The thing is the light is pulsing at such great velocity, such rapidity, that, for the human senses it seems like things are solid. We can reach up and pick a rock or a table or whatever. It seems solid. But really those atoms that make up these so-called material objects are pulsing light at extreme velocity, so it's so far beyond our sensory perception that we consider it solid. And how else could we play this game? How else could we dance on the stage of materialism and take on these characters that we play in these various incarnations that repeat on and on and on if we didn't buy into this illusion? I mean, we've got to believe the illusion in order to be part of this game.
Yeah. Yep, so our memory was wiped, basically, of past lives, and we are engaging in a dance from which we will gain much experience, knowledge, and wisdom, and we will bring this to our... we'll bring it into our higher nature when we inherit the spiritual world from which we are, or to which we are going, from which we are leaving the physical world, the three-dimensional world of illusion. So everything that we do in this dance is going with us. This is why it's very important now, and according to the Neo-Platonic philosophers, when you are incarnated, that is your opportunity to make improvement and advancement and to grow and develop your soul, because it is almost impossible when your soul is at rest in the spiritual realms. It's only in incarnation that we can make great advancements. So this is why it's not time to be asleep right now. It's really time to put intent and focus into your own advancement and your own conscious growth, friends. It's so crucial right now.
Yeah, it's a perfect system, too, that the Creator has created because, in the face of eternity, what better system is there, than to be able to come and experience the holographic universe on this holodeck, this Maya, this universe of illusion? How else would you spend eternity, This is the perfect way to do it, through repetitive incarnations, repetitive motions. Everything in the universe is based on the foundational motions of these spiraling electric vortices, which is repetition. So reincarnation and repetition are the same thing.
Oh, that's a powerful thought. That is a beautiful thought. Yeah, we were discussing with Matt in the earlier hour, Robert. We were talking about the red and blue light. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying how Walter Russell talks about going past them and into the white light, the undivided light. But see, the divided lights are red and blue. And this is fascinating. I mean, you can spend hours talking about the red and the blue, can't you? I mean, look at all the flags that have red and blue and white. Look at look at the police cars and the ambulances and everything. They have the red and the blue. And look at the movie, The Matrix. Are you going to take the red pill or the blue pill? Now, we know that red and blue are also the secondary most important colors, along with green, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so we see that the white light divides and then produces these two children, the red and the blue. Red being masculine, fire, electricity, blue being feminine, magnetism, and what we would call the negative part. Nonetheless,
well, the male and the female are the sex-divided electrical conditions they have these strains that want to seek rest in each other, and they can only find rest in each other, or the simulation of rest. When a perfect sphere is created, there's perfect balance between the male and the female. And there's that anode point at the center of the sphere, which is that point of rest. So everything wants to seek rest. And in this cosmology, there's an expression electrically from the center point out to the cathode planes, which are bounded by the inert gases. The inert gases are two-dimensional. They're absolutely flat, but they're recording. They're the spiritual elements, and what they do is they record the motions of those electrical waveforms, which are voided in the stillness of the magnetic planes, and then radared back to their centers while being transferred into the neighboring wave fields. So this entire system is based on this sex division, where male is always seeking female, or female is seeking male, because that's the only way they can balance each other, because they're both turning in the same direction. If a male tried to mate with a male in the electrical universe, it would be impossible because they're spinning in opposite directions. These electrical rings that give form to so-called matter. So that's why male and females mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They are seeking each other continuously, and so that they can find rest. Because what happens when you find love and light in a relationship is that you are actually seeking the rest that both of you can enjoy in the middle, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, for that sexual tension and the strain that you experience as a single individual. You can't find that without having a mate.
Wow. It's perfect, isn't it? And when you see it happening in the what we call subatomic level, in the thought waves, we can see that these spheres are produced in the same way as we are created. They also are conscious, and they are always seeking each other in the sex-divided universe. Fractally, it happens from the smallest thought to the biggest of galaxies and star cluster groups that we see out there. It's all doing that.
Absolutely, and what you're talking about is a seamless cosmology where you don't need a set of laws and all this crap for the nuclear theory of the atom, like strong and weak nuclear forces, which were made up these ad hoc theories. You have a seamless system where the atom and the galaxy and the star and the human and the animal kingdom and the vegetable kingdom and the mineral kingdom, everything is acting of the same exact accord. Everything, it's birth, it's small, it grows to maturity, and then it goes into death and is reborn. Every single thing in nature operates the same way. But yet in academic science, you have whole different sets of laws, all this crap for, the galactic and the astrophysics, as opposed to, the atomic world, as they call it. So, it's, once again, this compartmentalization of consciousness, this divide and conquer strategy, this boxing up people into different, sides and belief systems and boxes. And all it does is create conflict and, a world of scarcity. If we just copy nature, we would see unlimited abundance, because that's what nature does. It gives unlimited abundance through this process of love, which is giving so that giving can give again.
Wow. It gets more and more simple and more beautiful. Compartmentalization is what has caused this disease of compartmentalized scientists looking for the unified field theory. They'll never find it because it doesn't exist. It's called consciousness, people. Consciousness.
Exactly.
Yeah. So unconsciousness produces all these ills and diseases, and we have multitudinous followers of unconscious men who do not know, think they know, repeat opinions, vomit forth their half-truths, which are lies in effect, and you have a whole world of willing followers. Well, let's hope that changes soon, Robert. What are you expecting for the 21st? Are you expecting that we will have some kind, blissful vibration that will wake us all up within minutes so that we can all see that we are all divine, we are all of the one consciousness, we are one big conscious family, love is all there is, light, magnetic still light is at the center of everything. We don't need to go chasing illusionary theories based on empirical reductionism. And
absolutely.
we can all live
in
together.
Russellian science, if in fact we are crossing the galactic ecliptic as claimed by the Maya, that is a cathode plane of the cube, which gives form to the spherical and ring systems of our Milky Way galaxy. That is called the south inertial plane, the equatorial divide of the galaxy, which is an extension of the point from the center. So, in the Mayan cosmology, the point in the center is the Hunab Ku, the great being that births all of these star beings, which, further on, birth planets and moons. So, at the very core of the galaxy, we have this being that apparently, according to the Mayan cosmology, if you look at it through Russellian science, we will make contact with that center because that plane is an extension of that point. It's exact. You don't have to go to the center of the galaxy to meet the Hunab Ku. The Hunab Ku is going to meet us at the ecliptic.
Hallelujah. Hey, Robert, we've only got 3 minutes left. So please share with folks the most crucial website or resource center where they can go to get yours and Matt's beautiful information. We forgot to mention Matt, so if you'd like to take care of that, please, for us.
Oh, great. We have a shared website called thesecretoflight.com, which has all of our videos up and the whole Russellian Science series. And my website is Free Energy and Free Thinking, which is FEANDFT.com. And it goes kind of beyond the Russellian science. Russellian science is at the core, but it's more of the big picture. It takes into consideration the monetary system, religion, politics. I mean, it's the big picture, but it shows the Russellian sciences and free energy technology is the way out of this hellhole, that the scumbags of the world have created for us.
Yeah, and guys, listeners, I would really seriously be going to thesecretoflight.com now. Don't take another breath. And watch the beautiful lineup of videos. They're 14-minute videos, 8-minute videos, 10-minute, and they're all dealing with exquisite science. Please do yourself a favor. On the front page of the website, you just scroll down, and there they are, the videos, one after another, and all you have to do is click on them and listen to them. It's like a playlist. Please do yourselves a favor, folks, because this science will be the salvation of us all. It's science will save the day. It's not higgledy-piggledy, hocus-pocus repetition of opinions. Over to you, Robert. We've got 2 more minutes.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me on again, Santos. I'm so sorry there was a confusion about the time. I was out working with the horses, so I got to feed the horses about that time anyway, so I couldn't have made it under those conditions. But next time we'll know that there is a 2-hour difference between where Matt Presti is and I am. He's out in the Ozarks, and I'm on the West Coast.
Yeah, for sure, and I'll be aware of that myself too. But no doubt, I will have you guys on again. I'm going to have you as many times as you will accept, till the point where you turn around and get bored of me or annoyed with me and don't come back. Which means
that won't happen, Santos, and it's a great pleasure. Anytime you want.
Yeah, and as I said to Matt, most of it is purely selfish because I want to benefit from your wisdom and your knowledge and all the devotion and time and energy that you have put into your websites and all of your understanding of Russellian science. So I am the beneficiary number one of this, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you, and just much love to all your listeners and to you as well. And we do all of this not for ourselves. We do it to upraise humanity because we don't want to live in a hellhole world controlled by these elite, that where it's all about them. We want to see every human on this planet experience abundance, joy, happiness, prosperity, and absolute connection with the Creator.
Wonderful. Robert Otey, I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, and thank you, listeners, for joining us too. I'm sure you'll agree it was a great show, full of a wealth of information. Please stay tuned next week for another show. I might take this Tuesday on next week also. So thank you once again, and bye-bye until next time. Thank you.
Many blessings.
Bye-bye. Who fall into that pitfall of illusion. Very, very sad. Now, I really enjoy the illustration that you brought to my attention of how Walter Russell explained his illumination. He explained that he had to go past the two lights, or the two pillars, blue and red, of duality, and then reach the white pillar of white light. I really get a lot out of that, Matt. It's opened up many, many things to me. So the dualistic world, and I think if I'm correct, you mentioned that the red is the left brain and the blue is the right brain. So, but the stillness, the still white light of knowing and being is in the center of these two lights, these two colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you expand on this? Because this is beautiful. It's rich.
Sure. The red and blue is dominantly the two sides of creation, the male being red, the female being blue. And basically it's the hemispheres of all bodies. Cells have hemispheres, north and south. Planets have hemispheres. People have hemispheres. And we also have equator lines. And the equator is, in the center of the equator is one of the plane cubes. And all cube planes, the side static six faces, which we are cubical. We have a front, a back, a left, a right, and a top and a bottom. So literally, for the most part, many creations of man mimic the cube. And basically, the stillness being the cube side, or the center, is a cathode plane of evacuation, of undividedness. And in those inert rings of mind, gas rings of inert gases, the central shaft of that is the gravity shaft of man, and you could say it runs straight down the center of the body. The heart is the twin opposing vortice, where as Robert likes to say, the seat of the soul, as was distilled from the Atomic Suicide book. They changed their language from being the pineal.
You're with Santos Bonacci, and this is just a special edition. I've invited some great guests today. I have Matt Presti and Robert Otey, and they will be joining me very, very shortly. A couple of weeks back, we did have a show with Matt and Robert, and it was great. It was well received, and folks called me up asking to have them again. So this is going to be great. I'll be speaking directly with Matt and Robert together. So, and I've asked for this special edition because I really am keen to get as much Russellian science and natural science out in the airwaves as possible. I'm just doing my part to be able to reach as many people with this beautiful science. And I really feel in my heart of hearts that Matt and Robert are the ones who are teaching Russellian natural science probably the best, including Jason Verbelli, which I will have eventually on one of my shows. But these guys have been doing wonderful work. They have wonderful websites and resources and information where you can now really study natural science and get away from these stupid theories that just keep changing by the day, and they keep just inventing new stuff to entertain us with, really, in the nuclear atom world of consensus buffoons. And people, of course, are trained to look up to these monkeys, you know, the scientists and all of these idiots. And so people, as soon as they open their mouths and vomit out their crap, you know, they've got hordes of blind fools that open their ears to listen to these morons. So that's why, as you know, folks, I'm a fiction buster, and I love busting fictions. And I've had a go at the fictional science teachings, the theories, and I've had a go in my presentations to show how erroneous they are. But it's always a pleasure to speak with people like Matt and Robert. Now, Matt, I believe we have you online. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for joining me at such short notice, too. I only found out yesterday that I had this extra show, and my intention for this month was to rest and relax and, you know, spend time with my wife, and and because but the opportunity to talk to you guys. Hello, you there? Can you hear me, Matt? Oh,
There's
sorry.
a little bit of interference there. I lost you, but
yeah, I have to apologise right now. I do have some troubles with my brand new mic, which I bought 2 weeks ago, and my brand new headphones. So, folks, please forgive me if I'm cutting in and out. So, Matt, thanks once again, and here we are doing another show. So this time, basically, it's just you guys and me.
sounds great. It's just, you know, it's almost technology, so a bigger call is always a more difficult task and challenge. So,
yeah, and look, I'm a bit selfish here having you guys back because I learned so much from listening to you. So, you know, this is really a treat for me to have you guys. It's just a treat for me, and of course, I know how much the listeners appreciate what you guys have got to share, because I was bombarded by people saying, have Matt and Robert on again. And I want to have more natural science / Russellian science on audio before the end of this year is out. So very, very selfish on my part, but it's going to be to the advantage of many, many listeners. Yeah, well, where we left off last time was we were talking about debunking some of the... Well, we did debunk some of the atomic theories, the nuclear atom, etc. But that's an interesting subject, the nuclear atom. Why do you think it is that we have so many followers of this theory? It's just a theory. Are people too lazy to want to, investigate for themselves, or are they just happy to let the scientific world preach to them whatever rubbish theories they come up with?
Well, I guess I could best say I think it's in line with mankind's natural progression. Honestly, I don't think it was, in the very beginning, education was very hard to get across to people as far as why it's good to read, why it's good to write, and it's taken literally thousands of years for even a form of education to become something that people felt was important. I mean, always in the tribal setting, the shaman would share the wisdom with the tribe, and I think that's the roots of education. But as they say, the road to hell is always paved with good intentions, but as Terence McKenna said, the road to hell is never paved with clarity. So in that children come up in an education system that has obviously been hijacked in the past 100 years, so it is that it's natural that if lies are taught, then lies will be what's believed. And it's not necessarily the fault of the people in the colleges and the schools. I mean, we've all been duped, and we all have to come to this awakening process if we're going to really see what it is we're trying to free ourselves from. And so I think it's a good place to start with a accurate perception that, what we're dealing with in terms of other people's awareness is really something to empathize with, because we've all come from that place, and we know how hard it can be to take a look at things that just seem completely out of the box, especially if the box is all you know. So,
yeah, look, the system's been hijacked by materialists, wouldn't you say? People who are purely material, who really believe that everything results from the material organic soup that has evolved over millions of years, and all of these other things like consciousness and the brain and the mind and emotions, and all of these are a byproduct and a natural side effect of the material organism evolving.
Yeah, indeed, and I think part of the mistake on scientists' part for why they reject the notion of a causal universe by mind force is because the senses are literally a mirror. They wouldn't work if vibration, and as the 18 dimensions that Walter talked about, weren't dimensions where you exist in another reality. These were dimensions of physicality, and these 18 dimensions, some of which include time, temperature, width, breadth, height, all these things that are verifiable through sense when you use your senses correctly. And basically what senses are mirrors of these vibrations. They wouldn't work if these vibrations weren't there. So these frequencies, vibrations of matter, which is light, all matter is simply different pressure conditions of this one substance. So what science has effectively done is locked itself into a position of sensing from these senses alone, which is equivalent to trying to drive a car looking in your rearview mirror to go forward. I mean, literally, the mere effect of reality is vibration. And so from stillness, this vibration unfolds into a seeming motion picture universe of illusion, but refolds into stillness. And that's really the difference between sensing and knowing, where sensing is living in a mirror image and believing the image to be real, as knowing is to live in the real universe and to know that the image of motion and vibration is the mirage or the illusion. So one place denotes living from the external looking inward, which is toward the soul, and the other involves from the inward looking outward and believing the outward is real, which is objectivity for the most part.
Yeah.
It's where also notions of atheism and lack of creator and as being causal. So.
Yeah, very, very sad. Very, very sad for the one